Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session we are talking about loops in Java. As I discussed, looping constructs in Java are statements that allows a set of instructions to be performed or a block of statements to be performed for a certain times or repeatedly as long as a particular condition remains true. Continues its execution of the loop body. Whatever block of statement you write into the block, that expression evaluates to false. Once the expression evaluates to false, you will exactly go out of the loop. This is how the loop iteration works. But before that, I would like to tell you a very obvious example of loop that you can compare with your daily routine of a programmer or a user, anyone, that every day we eat, sleep, or maybe we are a developer, so we write code and then we repeat. Eat, sleep, code, repeat, eat, sleep, code, and repeat. That's how the iteration works. That's called as an iteration. Similarly, there is a loop condition to iterate it. If the loop condition is true, for example, I am a developer and I repeat my daily routine as eat, sleep, code, and repeat. But at a certain day, if I am not well, then I will not code. So that's what a condition comes in between. If not well, then I will not iterate. I'll not go back and iterate it. I'll just go out of the loop. That is called exit controlled loop kind of statement. So that's how looping statement works. There are loops like for loop, while loop, do while loop, for each loop. I will help you to understand each of them one by one. So stay tuned. Thank you so much. Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Here I am going to talk about the very first loop called for loop. For loop is basically one of the very appropriate loop. When we know the exact number of times the loop is going to run, we use most of the time for loop. Basically, in each loop, not even in for loop, in each loop, there are three statements that comes into the picture. That's called declaration or initialization of the iterative variable, condition, and update statement. That will help me to update the expression or the iterative variable. Typically, for loop is useful when you are aware of the exact number of iteration, as I told you, because it provides a concise way of writing initialization, test condition, and increment-decrement statement in one line. Thus, it's very easy to debug also, and there is no risk of forgetting. For example, you miss writing the increment or decrement statement, or you miss writing the condition. Chances are very less in this syntax of for loop. That's how the flowchart works. First, we need to initialize our iterative variable. Then it will go and check for the condition, for loop condition. If the condition is true, then the code block will execute, and then second time onwards, it will update the statement. Let's say iterative variable is I. So I'll say I plus 1 and then again check if meets the condition, then again execute the code block and then again update the statement until the loop condition is true. The iteration must go on. Otherwise, it will go out of the loop exactly. So for loop is a entry controlled loop, as we check the condition first. If the condition is not true, then it will not evaluate the body of the loop, will simply go out, not even a one time. Let me help you to understand with the help of an example. So as I explained to you, there is a specific syntax of the for loop, and each for loop, while loop, or do while loop that I'm going to discuss it later, have three common statements: initialization of the iterative variable, test expression, and then increment and decrement statement, along with the body of the loop in each loop type. So first of all, I'm writing a syntax for you that will be feasible to understand. So there we write a for loop. So that's how it works. This statement is called initialization. You can see that it's checking up the condition. So that's called, we call as test condition, and that is increment or decrement statement on the basis of the iterative variable. and under that you write a body of the loop. That's how the iteration works in. So here there is a syntax, and let me help you to understand the example. For example, I have, as I discussed with you, we use for loop when we know the exact number of times. That is a preferability. Otherwise, you can go along with any kind of, test condition that you are opted out as per the requirement. Let's say I have a maximum number until what my loop needs to be executed. Going to start my for loop. I have generated this snippet. So here you can see that this is the iterative variable. I said that until I equals to 0, starts from I equals to 0 until I is less than 5. So you can see that if I am starting from 0 and I am going till less than 5, it will execute 5 times, 0 to 4. If you are starting from 1 and you wanted to go till 5, then you will write I less than or equals to 5. Choice is yours, guys. So here we wanted to do increment each time when the iteration gets up. And here I wanted to write down my body of the loop. I don't want to write much as of now. I just wanted to generate my hello world message each time along with the iteration number. That's it. So you can see that I have already declared a variable max number. If you have a maximum number or any particular variable that wants to hold the condition exact number, that you can assign it. Otherwise, you can write a manual number as I was writing earlier. So you can see that that's how the for loop works. First time when you get enter, initialization will happen. We'll check if I is less than or equals to max number. If yes, it will directly come to this body and will statement gets executed. It will not check for the increment decrement first time. Second time when your loop gets terminate, when your statement gets executed, it will just come to this I plus plus. Will increase the I with 1, which is I equals to I plus 1. Now the I is 2. Maximum number is 5. 2 is less than or equals to 5 will come to the body. You might observe that first time we skip this statement and second time onwards we will not be going to this statement. Body of the loop, increment, decrement, condition. Body of the loop, increment, decrement and condition. How does it work exactly? First, let me tell you without debugging how does it works. So this will print hello world with iteration number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me help you out with a debugger. So here the debugger must be starting. So you can see that when I just go step into, you can see that I equals to 1, maximum number is 5. The statement gets printed. Second time, it's again checking for the condition. I becomes 2 in this I plus plus. Maximum number is 5. Will print hello world and number 2. Will again go and check maximum number is 5. Whether I plus plus, which is 3 now. I equals to 3. Whether 3 is less than or equals to maximum number 5 or not. Condition evaluates to true. Hello world 3 gets printed. Same thing gets happen for the I equals to 4. I gets plus plus. Needs to be checked whether 4 is less than or equals to maximum number. Yes, the iteration will happen and so on. Once I equals to 5, exactly the output gets printed. Next time when your I gets 6, you can see that your loop gets terminated. So guys, this is how for loop works. I'm just writing a sample code for your ease that you can easily understand what kind of things that you can work with here. Here I'm going to declare a variable sum equals to 0. I wanted to calculate the sum of first 10 whole numbers. So I just wanted to start my for loop. I said that this loop will go till 10 because I wanted to calculate the sum of first 10 numbers, natural numbers or whole numbers. Sum plus equals to each time whatever I would be there. Let me start I with 1, not 0. So I, until I is less than or equals to 10, this loop has to execute. And that's what I wanted to print. Result is whatever the sum is holding at the end. So you can see that each time the value gets incremented and decremented, rather than printing, we are just calculating the sum and holding it into the sum variable, so that I can just use it after the termination. You can also keep it inside the loop, but it will print your result each time. So you can see that first number 1 plus 2 3, 3 plus 3 6, 6 plus 4 10, and so on until the I becomes 10 itself. I hope the concept is clear to everyone. I'll stay tuned for more examples. Until next time, stay tuned. Thank you. Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session, I'm going to talk about the while loop. While loop is basically used when the number of iteration is not known, but the terminate condition is known. Yes, you heard it right, guys. When the number of iteration is not known, the number of repetitions will have in a code. But when to terminate your loop is known. So the block of statement will execute. Once the condition evaluates to false, it will just go out of the loop or terminates the loop. While loop is more like a entry control loop, as the condition is checked before the entry into the loop. If the condition is not true, then the loop will not even execute for the one time. This is how the flowchart works. Before entering, checking up the condition. If false, just exit. If true, then the code block gets executed. Let's quickly understand how does it work. Considering I want to print hello world 5 times as we discussed in the for loop, I will initialize the variable, iterative variable with 1 while I is less than or equals to 5. Each time hello world gets printed along with the iterative variable. Within the loop, every time I'll increase the I with 1. You can simply write I plus plus. If you wanted to decrease, then write I minus minus. I am writing with the same expression I equals to I plus 1. So guys, this is the initialization statement as I discussed. This is the conditional expression. And this is the increment or decrement. So the issue with such kind of iteration with while loop is, in for loop, every statement is being encapsulated into one line. So there are very less chances to miss any of them. So that's what I suggested. When you have fixed number of iteration, you know, rather than just writing these 3 statements individually this way, better to write with the help of a for loop. But when your number of iteration is not known, you can go for a while loop. Let me help you out with an example. First of all, I'll just use a separator. Declaring a string input variable with empty string initially. While input dot equals to quit, I'll just input this value from user. Then I'm going to check once the user will enter the input. If the input is any value, then print the value as it is. If it is quit, the value is quit, then I will terminate the loop. So here I just wanted to S out, enter input. I just gonna scan the value from the user. System.in. I'm gonna scan the value. Value is of integer type, so that can hold any value, integer, string, or anything. Scanner.next. Post that, I wanted to check whether the user enters input or not. So what I can do is I can just iterate it with one time. How does it work? Before that, I also wanted to print what user enters as it is. Your input is whatever user enters. One thing I wanted to tell you, I am saying that I need to scan the input from user. Input can be quit also. So this condition will only evaluate if the quit is in lowercase. I should write here until it is not equals to quit, then should execute. So when the quit will enter in the uppercase or init case, then this condition will not evaluate anyhow. So what I can say that if there is any string to be entered in this input, I want to convert that to a lowercase. So let's get started and check this up. Enter the input hello world by how are you, even though you can write any number, until you keep continuing. The moment you will write quit, it will quit your loop. You can run once again. You write a quit in a capital, it will first convert this into a lowercase and then will compare. So as the condition says, we'll take the input, we'll print the input until the input is not quit, then it will keep continuing. So certain kind of input based limitations or the conditions if you have in your program, you can easily use while loop. I hope the concept is clear to all of you. Until next time, stay tuned. Thank you. Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session, I am going to talk about do while loop. Basically, do while loop is the loop which will execute at least once irrespective of the test condition. Whether the condition is true or not, the loop body has to execute at least one. And at the most as many times the condition evaluates to true. That's what the user wants to understand. Useful when you are sure about one-time execution, and further execution depends upon the specified condition. As I discussed one of the example in while loop, until user does not enter quits, I just want to keep continuing the body of the loop to be executed. One more iteration, there are so many examples like banking application. If you have done with one transaction, it will ask, do you wish to continue with another transaction? If you will say yes, then the body of loop will execute, otherwise not. This is how the flowchart works. The code block gets executed without checking the condition. Second time onwards, it will check the condition. If the condition is true, then the block will execute. Otherwise, it will get out of the loop. So that's what we say. It always execute at least one time. Second time onwards based upon the condition. Let's understand with an example. First of all, I would like to print hello world 5 times. I'm going to initialize a variable with 1. Without checking any condition, I'll come inside the loop and print hello world and the value of I. Next time it will increase the value of I with plus plus. Before getting out of the loop, we'll check the condition. Until I is less than or equals to 5, the loop will start with the second execution, otherwise not. So you can check that initialization happened. That's you all know. Initialization of the iteration variable. This is the body of loop which is getting executed. This is how increment and decrement happens. And that's the condition. So you can see that before checking up any condition, the loop gets started, the body gets executed, I gets plus plus. Here it's checking for when I is 2, 2 is less than or equals to 5 or not. So obviously this is going to execute 5 times. Output is same. But imagine if my I is not less than or equals to 5, by mistake or intentionally I kept it 100. So you can see that even though I is 100, at least loop gets execute once. Second time onwards it will be 101 after I plus plus. So 101 is not less than equals to 5. The loop will not execute. That's how the do while is not suitable for the iteration when you have a fixed number of iterations to be executed. Let me help you with the same example that we discussed in the while loop when we depends upon the user choice. So we're going to start with do, declaring a variable string input. We'll take the input from the user, enter input, scanner, new scanner, post that would like to take this input from the user, scanner.next. As I discussed, we're going to check for the quit statement. So each input will be converted into lowercase, so that after printing the body, I can check from the user what user has entered. If user has entered the input and the input is not equals to quit, till that number of times the loop has to execute. So every time the user enters, it checks whether it is quit or not. If it is not quit, then the loop will execute. If it is quit, then loop will terminate. So you can see that without checking any condition, at least once the loop body is getting executed. Let me help you out with. In between, I can just put a separator. So you can see that it is asking for the input. Let me just terminate the terminals and start the new one. Enter the input. Input is 10. Okay. Input is hello. Input is user. The moment I write quit, whether in uppercase or lowercase, will convert this into the lowercase, and then it is quitting the do while loop. I hope the differentiation is clear between for loop, do while loop and while loop. Basically, for loop is for fixed number of iteration. While loop and do while is for variable kind of loop when the number of iterations are not fixed. Rest, every syntax works for all the suitable condition. In whichever syntax you are comfortable, you can go with that. Until next time, stay tuned. Thank you. Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session, I'm going to talk about for each loop in Java. Basically, for each loop is to traverse the array or collection in Java. Although there is an iterable interface that represents a collection of objects which can be iterated, but for each is a syntactical sugar over those iterable interface, which means they can be iterated using a loop, which is a for each loop in Java. Any collection or array you can iterate with, whether it's an array list, linked list, vector, stack, and so on. Basically, for each eliminates the possibility of bugs and make the code more readable. As I already said, it's a syntactical sugar over the iteration. It traverses the each element one by one in the in the incremental order, not in ascending order, guys. It's in incremental order from starting from the first index till the last one. Cannot traverse the element in reverse order. Please mark my words. Cannot traverse the element in reverse order. Why? Because for each loop does not works on the basis of index, that you can start from any index and go till any particular index while iterating the array or collection. It always starts from 0th till the last. This is how it works. The loop gets started, element found in the collection, then true. If not found in the collection, then false, without checking up any condition. So let's get started to understand how does it exactly works. Considering guys, I have a string array which contains the list of users' names. I'm going to initialize the names at the time of the declaration. King, Kocher, Shreya, Roger. I have 4 names in this collection in this array. If I will iterate it with for loop, I'll just start for I equals to 0, which is the 0th index where the king is being stored. Until I is less than the names dot length, I want to iterate each item and will like to print the names at ith index. But if you will try to iterate it with for each loop, you just have a look at the syntax. It is going to declare a local variable just like the iterative variable in the case of for loop. You can just name it anything. As I discussed with you, you can keep this variable type as string, or if not sure, then you can also define the variable dynamic type. So here the name is the local variable created. Until the names collection or array is having the names available or the values available, we'll take one by one name into this variable and get it printed. As I discussed, until the collection is not empty, array is not empty, we'll start from 0th index till n-1, whatever it is, Roger. We'll take it up into the local variable print. We'll take it up into the local variable and print. Let me just put a separator. So output is same, but I hope you also agree with my statement. For each loop is more convenient. But as I discussed with you, you cannot iterate for each loop in the reverse order that you wanted to print, like Roger, Shreya, Kocher and King. But here you can do this with the help of for loop. For example, you wanted to start the I from names.length until I is greater than 0. You can just say I minus, so your names gets printed in a reverse order. As I told you, for each loop does not works in the index. That's what it will not work on the basis of the reverse order to be printed. So basically there is a small rectification. If you have names.length, you have to start from -1 because index goes length -1 and until I is greater than n equals to 0. So you can see that this thing you can do in for loop to print the elements in the reverse order, but not with the help of for each loop. Although you can use jump statements or conditions if you want to use within the for loop. That's what we're going to discuss in the next iteration. So stay tuned for more practical scenarios coming up on the way. Thank you so much everyone.